course, even that particular story, we're given to understand that Senator Orengo and David Ndii, they were stopped, or they're being held at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport from traveling to Zimbabwe to attend the burial of Morgan Tsvangirai. And of course, I want to just rope in also in studio with us this morning, Dr. Otende Amolo, to give us just, of course, a snippet of what he knows about this particular development. So what is the issue regarding this particular story with Morgan Tsvangirai, Orengo and Ndii being held at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport?
Well, Debarl, as I mentioned, I think we are quickly but consistently sliding into lawlessness and essentially a suspension of the Constitution. This is not the first time, it's not even the 10th time we've seen court orders being blatantly disobeyed. I think the relevance of the story of Miguna for me is that the orders that were issued in his favor still remain unaffected. And obviously the other measures will now start taking, including petitioning for declaration of those officers as unfit to hold office. But in the case of Senator Orengo and Jim Wanjigi, they obtained court orders among 7 other officials to prevent the state from seizing either their passports or stopping them from traveling. Jim Wanjigi and Senator Orengo, as I understand, because I was in communication with them, were leaving the country to attend the burial of Morgan Tsvangirai. But the officials, very junior officials at the airport, told them that they have instructions from above. The era of instructions from above is back, and the above in this case is the Director of Immigration, Kihalangwa, that they cannot travel. So as we speak, I understand they're still at the airport, which is singularly unfortunate. When a state leads in disobedience of court orders, it is unimaginable what it will expect of its citizens. When people start defying the most basic authority, whether it's from the chiefs or the police or any other authority, then the state will not be in any position to question any such thing. I think it is quite unfortunate. Yes.
All right, thank you. Maybe Bonnie Khalwale, you want to comment on that a bit, or any of you, regarding this particular new development?
Only one sentence suffices, namely, this is not acceptable. It is just furtherance of the impunity and the clampdown and crackdown on the opposition leaders of this country, something that is not going to help President Uhuru at all. The sooner he abandons that kind of style, the better for him.
All right, let's hear from Aaron Cheriot and Kimani Wamatangi, because of course the president has also your listening ear. What would you tell him in this particular respect?
Well, I've just heard this story from my colleague, fellow panelist, Dr. Otiende. It's not an issue that I have the facts therein to give me a good understanding of what might have transpired. But if that is the case, as he has reported, then it will be unfortunate in my humble opinion, because it is not something to be proud of as a democracy when you have people that hold contrary views to what is regarded as yours are treated with such punitive way. However, again, we need to question and find what will be the cause that has informed such decision. Are they, for example, people that have been... There are circumstances where one can be, where the state can have justifiable reason as not to allow one to travel out. Maybe they have planned something that will harm the nation, and therefore the state feels it is important for them to remain. We do not have that information. Maybe they planted a bomb and they want to run away. You know, if
you need our vote to sound. Yes.
I told you today is a very difficult morning for me. When you need Otiene's vote, you have to be very careful.
Let's hear from Watangi.
Debarl, my view, my position would be that you know, the last thing I would want to do is to be speculative on such matters, and because as Senator Cheriot has just said, you know, this is something that we've just heard over from Dr. Otiende, and it's not really been confirmed, or neither actually. Debarl, do you have the facts yourself? So would be very limited really in commenting factually. Otherwise, what we'd just be doing is really airing personal views, which are not necessarily relevant to what's happening. But a question one may want to ask is this: on that question of travel bans. You know, remember there was a time when the U.S. government banned so many people from traveling actually to their country. And I heard the country was largely quiet on a decision by the U.S. government to ban Kenyans from traveling into that country. And you know, then one would want to ask themselves, you know, as a country, when you have issues arising, how would you want to address them? Because I believe we must find a way ultimately as to how do we really deal with questions on the validity and usefulness of a travel of an individual who could be at that time either suspect of any misdeeds. And I think that's a big question. I'm limiting my comments on that because I don't like speculating on such issues. I like commenting factually. Yeah.
All right, but in light of course, the travel bans before, right, to some of the NASA members, I think this is the follow-up of that particular travel ban. So facts may not be there on this particular incident, but of course,
right,
they were mentioned.
It's true. Yes. It's true that it was publicly announced that the passports of certain individuals within the NASA fraternity have been withdrawn. That was broadcast live and all over. It's a fact. And as Otiende Amolo says, then they went to court and appealed that course of action. What me and you don't know is has the state law office also probably appealed the action? I mean, you know, those facts are in the gray between me and you, really, and so that's why you find will be floating somewhere by trying to.
But if it was appealed, it would have really come to the attention of the media. Yeah.
Let me clarify.
Yeah, please clarify.
First of all,
we'll come to you, Boni.
The orders are in place. They have not been appealed. They have not been varied. They have not been suspended. Number two, I think it is unfortunate when a senator, Senator Matangi, Senator Cheriot, can ascribe issues like perhaps having a bomb, planting a bomb, on their colleague, a respected colleague. I think that is belittling even the discussion level of this panel. Number three, the mistake the two of them are making, which this government keeps making, is that they still think that a passport is given as a privilege, as it was given in the prior constitution. Under Article 12(2) of the constitution we operate with, a passport is an entitlement. It is your property. It's no longer the property of the state. And if it is to be taken, confiscated, or withdrawn, Article 12(3) lays a very elaborate procedure, and it is very elaborate. It cannot be done by the director of immigration and all. But more importantly, I think the question of being speculative is not there. We are on NTV, and no less a media house than NTV broke that news. It's not me, it is NTV. So if you want to disbelieve NTV, not me. So it's a fact.
And the Daily Nation. Let's say from Boni, we'll come to you very briefly.
I think, with all due respect, Senator Matangi, why are you being so wordy on the obvious? You cannot suspend a passport. Nobody can suspend a right. A passport is no different from your birth certificate. It is no different from your national identity card. You cannot suspend your birth certificate. What do you become? The moment they suspend yours, do you cease being a Kikuyu born in Kiambu and become a Luya born in Kakamega in Marinha village? Listen to me. If you suspend my national ID, do I cease being a Kenyan born in Kakamega? I become a Kenyan born in Kwale? In the same manner, you cannot suspend a passport. What the government holds power over is not your right to have or not to have the passport. The government only has the right to protect you when you're traveling under that passport out of the country. You then deserve protection from the government, and that is why when traveling out of the country under your right of that passport, should anything happen, you normally rush to the Kenyan embassy in the country that you have traveled to. So if the government wants to speak anything on the passport, it should say, I am now withdrawing my protection of you. You go to wherever you are going, but should anything happen to you there, don't come back to me. But they cannot take away a passport.
Okay,
do you know, in conclusion, let me tell you, do you know what a court ruling said in the US? It said a right under the Constitution of the United States is a right to rights.
Okay, all right, we'll come to you. Let's hear from Jacoy, and then we come to you. Briefly, we wind up on this.
Well, yeah, that's okay, but I can't say too much on this. Because I think this government is primitive, quite frankly. You know, a right clearly spelled out in the Constitution, the government has no power over it. I mean, to purport Matangi, you know, when the US government issued travel ban, I was one of those people who was slapped with that ban.
Mm-hmm. What had you stolen?
I had not stolen anything. We were standing for the rights of our people. And we told the Americans, you know, you may well keep it. And then they called us to negotiation. I was called. I was told why they felt it necessary to slap politicians with a travel ban to the US. And we moved on. But now, when it is in the Constitution, you don't even need to go to court unless you are illiterate. This does not even require constitutional interpretation. Article 12(2) does not require interpretation. I'm sure a 5-year-old kid can understand what it means. But to make it worse, people have gone to court when they were mistreating Miguna. In fact, Debarl, the other day, 2 days ago, there was something going on around in social media about Keter, that he had been held in a police station called Mogadishu. So people thought these crooks had deported Keter to Somalia. You know, because what are they doing? This is, it augurs very bad with the government. I thought by now, after what we have gone through in the last 6 months, we would be talking how to move forward. I mean, common sense. Is this country so different? But let me just say this. Mr. President, take it from me. You are digging a 20-foot grave. You will never get out of it. Because nobody is scared. Nobody will be scared. Let's talk our way out of this. You will not scare people. You will not scare the media. You will not do it. You will never change this constitution. In fact, the sections that hurt them so much, you have to take to a referendum. And you don't have the numbers. Out of 19.8 million Kenyans registered, only 3.5 million voted on the 26th. And he promised to bring the figures. He never brought the figures. He promised us to bring the figures.
Let's wind up on it. Let's wind up on it. I think we've belabored the point. No. Let's hear from Senator Kimano Matangi. We wrap up.
You know, Debarl, 3 quick things. First,
No.
I want to. Now you've given them the opportunity to say what they had to say, so let me reply.
But
to the things they said, so please, it's my chance.
Okay, please, let's hear from Kimano Matangi.
Why do you want me to say what you want me to say?
No, I just had 3, then I know. I'm seeing paragraphs.
Let me say what I want to say, not what you want me to say.
All right, please.
So, first I wanted to clear to Dr. Otiende Amolo that at no one time have I said that I suspect either senators, and I didn't hear even Cheruiyot say so, that they're carrying bombs. Well, maybe he will clarify, but I certainly I have no reason to suspect, and if I suspected any member of parliament, I would say so. Now, secondly, my friend Boni Halwale, you know, yes, you know, taking my passport or withdrawing any right would not make me a lawyer. And by the way, I've been wanting to come to lawyer land. I saw there's a lawyer there. I've been seeing there's a lawyer there who is doing some big job. Somebody who is calling himself Mwala or Mwale, who is trying to transform your Kakamega into Hamptons or something, you know, and the guy is doing great work. I would have wanted to hear you congratulating that man, but if I became a lawyer, I would want to come and live in Hamptons. Lastly, you know, Debarl, let's be frank. When these guys, when we talk about government, I want to remind my friends here, you're talking about government which has got 3 arms. The judiciary is a part of government. The executive is government. And we are part of government ourselves as legislature. So when you say that government cannot withdraw, and what I'm drawing your attention to, there are numerous cases, numerous. I can enlist so many, including of Kenyans, even right now in court, where you are taken to court and the court orders, can you deposit your passport here in court? When the court orders, inside a court of law, deposit your passport within the court. Just a minute. I mean, why are you answering? Answer when I finish. Let me make my point. I'm making a very simple point.
Thank you.
When the court, let me make my point. I'm saying when the court has ordered that deposit your passport in court, the court is simply saying that you cannot travel. The reason they have got reasons to believe that until and when you clear yourself as of that matter that is before the court, then you're free to travel. Now, that judiciary is a part of government. So if any other part of government may feel, and that's, you see what happened when the orders were given that time. And that does not negate the fact that the victims went to court. But that arm of government was saying that we, the ones who issue the passports, have withdrawn those passports for these reasons.
All right, thank you.
But then the victims find remedy by going to court to say this order, and which is right, that this order is not cannot be enforced. So the question that we are having on the table here, and that's what I said, is supposing then that arm of government that thought that right cannot be exercised now because of any risks that they saw, have they then themselves gone to court either to appeal what the victims were saying? And that's the gray area I was speaking about.
Thank you.
And I believe, finally, that though we are members of parliament ourselves and we enjoy privileges of being elected, we must also remember that we are truly and equally like every other Kenyan, bound by the law.
Thank you very much.
And by all the other provisions.
All right, and you've mentioned Article 12, subsection 2, which says, allow me to just quote it a bit. Passport or other document referred to in clause 1, subsection B may be denied, suspended, or confiscated only in accordance with the Act of Parliament that satisfies the criteria referred to in Article 24. Right?
No,
yes.
Wait.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Sub-article
12.3, yeah? And 12.3, sub-article 12...
12 no, 12.2 now.
12.2.
Yes. That was 12.1b.
1b.
Yes. I was referring you to 12.1b, then now go to 12.2.
Yes.
12.2.
Yes. Let me start from 12.1b.
Okay.
A Kenyan passport and any document of registration or identification issued by the state to the citizen. It is defined as a right and entitlement under Article 12.1a. What that does is that, unlike before when it was believed that you'd hold your passport as a privilege from the state and it can withdraw it, under this constitution, it is an entitlement, just as Boni Halwala was saying, like an ID, like a birth certificate, like any other thing. Now, what 12.2 does is saying it's making it very difficult to suspend or withdraw a passport. There must be an act of parliament that sets that out. First of all, there's no such act as we speak. Secondly, that act must satisfy Article 24. Article 24 says no right will ever be suspended or withdrawn unless it is justifiable in an open and democratic society. So when that act comes, we will have to debate in Parliament and say, is it consistent with an open and democratic society that you can withdraw a passport under this circumstance?
Thank you.
Like the one they tried to do of Miguna. Now, that has not been done. So where we are right now, you cannot do this. But Debarl, allow me to now educate Senator Matangi on only three quick things.
Can we
First
wrap
of
on
all,
this? Yes.
Very quickly.
As you educate
the
me,
distinction between state. Senator
as you
Matangi,
educate
let me just finish.
Please, Matangi, just let him have his head, then we'll give you an opportunity.
Sure.
Senator Matangi,
very
when
briefly.
we discuss and we debate, we must not confuse the listeners on the distinction between state and government. When we talk of state, it encapsulates the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, and the independent institutions as a holistic entity that will survive any election. But when we talk of government, primarily in this kind of discourse, we talk of the executive, because it changes every 5 years. So in this,
that is
Senator
common
Matangi,
Just
allow me
let
to
him finish. We'll give you time. Just a moment.
in this
then we'll
context,
we'll wrap
therefore,
up on it.
when we say this government, we mean this regime, we mean this executive. There's a distinction between the executive purporting to withdraw or suspend a passport and the judiciary doing so after due process contemplated in the Constitution.
Thank you.
Now, lastly, is that, please, when the court says deposit a passport with us, they are not suspending it. They are not withdrawing it. And when that very court says, give him the passport to travel, who are you to say that because the court can stop you, I can also stop you? It is unlawful.
All right, thank you. Allow me to give Aaron Chirot. We come to you briefly. Aaron, please.
Debarl, just I want to clarify something so quickly with words that are attributed to Dr. Otiende, that there are certain things that I said this morning that will imply or mean that Senator James Orengo is a suspect or anything of a kind. I'd wish to clarify that. But before I do it, you know, when Dr. Otiende and Midiwo speak, you tend to imagine that all these rights that are enshrined in the Bill of Rights come with no responsibilities on the person. Let me read for them Article 24 1D that says the need to ensure enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and fundamental freedom of others. Those are the conditions upon which certain rights can be suspended. Very clear in our Constitution. Building on my argument, isn't it? Listen, listen.
No, let him finish.
Let me finish, Yakoyo. Isn't it?
No. Just let him finish, then we'll jump in.
Yes, I have read it. I wanted you. Yes, I will. No, allow me to make my point. I didn't interrupt you. The reason why I read 24 1D is that I have a problem with all this NASA arrangement where they speak the language of reform but move around with men and women whose character is shadowy. Isn't it a fact, Debarl, that Jimmy Wanjigi, who was accompanied by James Orengo on this travel trip, the last time police raided his house, they found a cache of weapons. If you have such a man that you're working with and keeping his company, then we don't have the kind of information. The point is, the point is,
just a moment. But we've not established, and it's not even in the public domain.
Your cameras were there.
Yeah, it's true.
Your cameras were there.
What if these licensed? They were asked.
Listen, the police came out so clearly that the ammunition.
All right.
They were all licensed.
Listen.
Never been charged.
Yes.
Listen and listen well.
No, you can't make that kind of. It's
No. It's not unfair.
No. I don't want to really broach that particular
unfair.
subject because I am given to understand he is licensed to actually to have those particular arms.
Listen.
So if you have other information that is very different from what we do know, I'll rather maybe you give it to me first before you actually speak in public.
Jimmy, let me ask you just a very quick question. Jimmy Wanjigi's history in this country and his exploits are well known out in the public. Information that is out in public domain about things that he has done, allegations that have been made.
Right.
He is not a saint.
No. So are we talking
We
about...
need to come out clear on that.
Are we really talking about security attached to Jimmy Wanjigi?
Listen, it's not about security.
Yes.
My point is,
that's why we need to be very clear because...
You know, let us build this argument. My point is plain and simple. We said that if an individual has engaged in certain activities that we are not aware why the state took this decision to withdraw their passport.
All right, just a moment. Because we've all established here, and Kamano Matangi has said, we do not have the facts. Yes. So if we do not really have the facts, it is I think rebellious of you to actually come on air and actually try and drag the person.
No.
And you do not really have the facts in the first place, right? Okay.
The kind of statements you're making might invite a very serious suit.
Yes.
What your friend must now warn you that you can keep to this debate and make some general statement, but there are some which if you go to,
But
then you...
I have said
all right.
he's an
Okay,
alleged
let's move on.
character.
Thank you very much. Let's
Unless
move
I don't understand what that means.
Kimani Umatangi, briefly just summarize on what we're discussing. We move on to other
I
topics.
wanted just to refer to the education that Dr. was giving me. Because in this case, the education, Dr. and you know, I respect you a lot.
You know, when you mentioned Jubilee, I come for you.
Kimani Umatangi,
Yes, you know, I was just first declaring that I have a lot of respect for Dr.'s knowledge and his exposure, but in this case, his education has been very skewed and very shallow. And I say that with a lot of respect because, you know, one Dr. You know, I expected your education to start with a proper interpretation of that Article 12 that you read. And if I can take the words that are important in what I thought you'd be educating me about, so allow me to educate you in this back in turn, is that, you know, it refers to the rights, privileges, and benefits of citizenship. And so the question first you'd want to be asking yourself, when we are debating about the traveling out of this country and the usage of that passport, does it fall within the right? Is it a privilege, or is it a benefit of citizenship? I mean, because that's what the article says. And then, with all that, I can allow you, my brother, Daktari, you can say anything else, but you cannot be pedestrian about your references at all, because when you say that government comprises of the judiciary, the legislature, and whatever, and then you say the state comprises of the 3+ other constitutional bodies, and then let me finish. It's my turn. Jacob Midio, you can say what you want to say, but let me make my point. Then Otiende Amolo, then you finally say that when we are speaking in this context and referring to government, we are talking about the regime. That's what I'm saying, that you cannot then advance a professional view and then try to justify that you want to make pedestrian references. When you talk about government, you know that you're talking about government and its true composition. So if you're talking about the regime, talk about the regime. And you know what? What I'm driving straight to your table is this, that there is no declaration that was made by the regime. It was made by institutions of government. For example, when a cabinet secretary who has taken oath of office and is saying that I have withdrawn your passport, which still allows you the benefit to go and challenge that decision.
Thank you.
He's speaking in his capacity as a cabinet secretary.
All right, thank you.
And so
Let's
you
make
would be
progress
challenging
now.
the government, not a regime.
All right, thank you.
No,
We're winding up on it.
Yeah, but very briefly,
Completely
Debarl.
wrong. But
Number one, I think we need to debunk the impression being created that Orengo's passport was withdrawn. These people are simply barred staggeringly from traveling. You know, when Matangi talks about a cabinet secretary doing something, who is a cabinet secretary? A cabinet secretary works for the executive. That's the point Otiende is trying to make. That the courts, in fact, thanks to God, the courts are working. If the courts that Wamatiangi has its ilk so verily want to control, if the courts were to succumb, we don't have a country. When they take over JSC, when they are interfering with judges, whatever they are doing, if, God forbid, we get to the point where the executive is superior to the courts, there is no more country. We would then need to think
Thank you.
of how not to live together in this country.
Thank you.